Congresswoman, it's great to see you.
Nice to see you again, too.
You just reintroduced a bill where convicted pedophiles and child sexual predators would get the death penalty in certain states. Your quote, "The days of inaction against those who prey on children and sexually abuse adults are over. Pedophiles deserve the death penalty. They deserve to rot in jail where they belong. No mercy, no escape." 2 out of 3 bills would require the death sentence. Do you expect this to pass?
I'd be surprised if it doesn't, but I want to just voice my concern on this. When I first introduced this, before President Trump had really mentioned it on the campaign trail, I was really shocked at the level of my colleagues that actually did not want to support this, and they hid behind the death penalty and really forcing the Supreme Court to argue this. And what I would say to those people is, if we have a truly free and fair society and we use children and innocence as a marker on whether or not our justice system is functioning, please understand that if you have someone that takes away a child's innocence, that they're essentially murdering that person's soul. Those people never recover. And so I would hope that my colleagues can really, truly reflect deeply on what their convictions are, that they will support this. And I think after talking to President Trump, I think that he wouldn't have an issue signing something like this into law, especially because he made similar statements on the campaign trail.
No, it's such a good point, Anna. They have to bear that cross for the rest of their lives. And I'll just, a couple headlines. This is the New York Times. Pedophilia, a disorder, not a crime. The New York Times, again, the emerging psychology of pedophiles. And how about this for a book? A long, dark shadow for minor attracted people and their dignity. Minor attracted people. Why would anyone try to normalize this criminal behavior?
It's I think a more sadistic and dark thing that we really are facing as a country, because the United States is one of the top countries in the world for child sex trafficking and then also child pornography. But I want to point out that after I introduced this bill, many leftists were saying that I was somehow going to be going after LGBT members. And frankly, it's not true. The only thing that you would have to worry about is if you are a pedophile, yes, this applies to you.
I'm with you. The inauguration was just moved indoors. Haven't seen that happen in a long time. Was that the right move?
It's going to be freezing. They're saying that there's a polar vortex coming down to hit Washington. And so I understand President Trump's concerns. I'm sure that there's a lot of people who've come in town. It doesn't necessarily mean they have to leave the city. There's going to be a ton going on this weekend. And obviously, being here during such a historical time, I would advise everyone, don't go home, keep your tickets, and enjoy the festivities of the city and what we have to offer. But I think it was overall the right call, yes.
Yeah, I think, and for security reasons, I've been thinking about it all day. I'm happier that it's indoor. I want to talk to you about this. I know that you are a new mom. I've got children. The FDA just banned red dye number 3 in all food, drinks, and medicine here in the U.S. And to me, that's the Bobby Kennedy effect right there. He's been calling for this for years. It causes cancer. It's banned in Europe. My question, why wait until 2027, 2 more years to implement this? Why not just do it immediately?
We actually, when I first got into Congress, we started the legislation for this. We were told that we were going to face adversity on the Farm Bill if we introduced these pieces of legislation. So I actually had stuff focusing on parabens and also Red 40, as well as a number of other dyes that are artificial, known to cause autism, sterility, all of that. Frankly, they shouldn't just stop at red number 3. It's really weird that they're adding that in our food, and it's largely targeting young children. And so I would say, dear Kellogg's, please remove that before we force you to.
Yeah, absolutely. Ron DeSantis just picked Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody to replace Marco Rubio. Take a listen.
So that is why today I'm proud to announce that I am selecting our Attorney General, Ashley Moody, to serve as our next U.S. Senator.
All right, so I lived down in Florida, right in your area for a long time. Love it, miss it. Wish I was there now, actually. I don't get this. So DeSantis is out in 2026. I'm hearing today that Byron Donalds wants to run in 26. Is Ashley Moody going to run again, or is she just a placeholder?
I actually don't know. I actually have had the privilege of meeting AG Moody a few times on my own campaign trail, and obviously she's from the Tampa Bay area. But I actually don't know. I did just recently hear, though, about Byron Donalds' intention to run for governor. And so I was teasing that, I think, earlier this year. I actually jokingly call him Governor Donalds. Obviously, Byron is a MAGA persona and someone that I think would do great for the state of Florida, but I haven't heard too many other names for running for governor. And frankly, I know that the landscape in Florida is increasingly changing, especially being that we just saw some of our star talent raptured literally to the White House. And so I look forward to those special elections that are going to be taking place really soon, and looking forward to see how the landscape in Florida really pans out in the next couple of years.
I am too. I want to ask you about the Tampa Bay area. LA is a woke, DEI, mismanaged disaster. We saw that play out last week. Would you support the Olympics moving, the summer 2026 Olympics, moving out of Los Angeles and moving to, we always hear Miami, but I actually think the Tampa Bay area, I think it's better set up with St. Pete and Tampa and the Rays' new stadium going in. Would you support something like that? Because California is a disaster.
Yeah, most certainly. I actually already made the public call and request for the Olympics to move it to Tampa. I would love to be a part of that host committee for Tampa Bay, not to mention we have some of the prettiest beaches in the world. I'm sure Matt Gaetz could argue that all day long with the Panhandle, but we have some incredible beaches in St. Petersburg and the Clearwater area, and so we'd love to have them.
Yeah, St. Pete Beach, Paso Grill. The Don Cesar, that
Don't burn the spot.
Yes, exactly. So listen, every Friday I've had this gentleman on named Dr. Stephen Greer, and he's been talking about this alien disclosure. I want to play you a soundbite. This is you during a hearing talking about UFOs and UAPs. Let's listen.
Different government agencies from the military stating that UAPs are real, and then you have this aspect of technological advancements. For us, it is a national security issue to ensure that we know what's happening, but also, too, I think it's silly from a mathematical perspective and also a religious perspective to think that human beings are the only creation that God did create.
All right, so you were on the committee. I saw one of these drones. This is not a drone. This thing was not. I've never seen any technology like this. I got it on my cell phone. What's going on? What can you tell us?
Look, I'm looking forward to the confirmation of Marco Rubio because, as you know, the UAP investigations were not just bipartisan, but they are bicameral, meaning that it was both the House and the Senate. And so from my perspective, you know, if you would have even addressed this 10 to 15 years ago, you would have been called nuts, a conspiracy theorist, and you probably would have kissed your political career goodbye.
Right.
I can tell you that regardless of where I'm at in the country, the number one thanks and question that I actually get is on my UAP investigations. But it doesn't just stop there. You know, since we conducted and launched these investigations via House oversight, and I am a sitting member on oversight, we actually had many people reach out saying or claiming that they had information. I'm going based off of releases and declassified information directly from the Pentagon, as well as credible sourcing from witnesses that we've been able to discuss directly. And what I can tell you is you have to be careful of the disinformation, but there's definitely something out there. And so people joke that I'm the Scully of the X-Files in Congress, but I would just say I'm doing my job.
Yeah, we went from tinfoil hats to disclosure. Hope to see you on Monday on a Paulina Luna, Congresswoman Florida. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.